A legal setback for President Trump. Today, a federal judge in San Francisco ruled the recent mass firings of federal workers are unlawful. The judge ordered the Office of Personnel Management to rescind directives to agencies like the Department of Defense and the Park Service. The ruling comes in response to a lawsuit by labor unions claiming officials lacked the authority to order terminations, and that notices to workers were cited a lie of poor judge performance.
We have for the first time, we will have for the first time something that is smarter than the smartest human. And that, I mean, it's hard to say exactly what that moment is, but there will come a point where no job is needed. You can have a job if you want to have a job for sort of personal satisfaction, but the AI will be able to do everything. So, I don't know if that makes people comfortable or uncomfortable.
Thank you, Mr. President. I actually just call myself a humble tech support here because this is actually, as crazy as it sounds, that is almost a literal description of the work that the Doge team is doing, is helping fix the government computer systems. Many of these systems are extremely old. They don't communicate. There are a lot of mistakes in the systems. The software doesn't work. So we are actually tech support. It's ironic, but it's true. The overall goal here with the Doge team is to help address the enormous deficit. We simply cannot sustain as a country $2 trillion deficits. The interest rates, just the interest on the national debt now exceeds the Defense Department spending. We spend a lot on the Defense Department, but we're spending like over $1 trillion on interest. If this continues, the country will become de facto bankrupt. It's not an optional thing, it is an essential thing. That's the reason I'm here. And taking a lot of flack, and getting a lot of death threats, by the way. I mean, I'd like to stack them up, you know. But if we don't do this, America will go bankrupt. That's why it has to be done. And I'm confident at this point, knock on wood, you know, knock on my wooden head, there's got a lot of wood up there, that we can actually find $1 trillion in savings. That would be roughly 15% of the $7 trillion budget. And obviously that can only be done with the support of everyone in this room. And I'd like to thank everyone for your support. Thank you very much. This can only be done with your support. So it's really, Doge is a support function for the president and for the agencies and departments to help achieve those savings and to effectively find 15% in reduction in fraud and waste. And we bring the receipts. So people say, like, well, is this real? Just go to doge.gov. We line item by line item, we specify each item. So, and I should say, we will make mistakes. We won't be perfect, but when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly. So, for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola, Ebola prevention. I think we all want Ebola prevention. So we restored the Ebola prevention immediately, and there was no interruption. But we do need to move quickly if we're to achieve a $1 trillion deficit reduction in financial year 2026. It requires saving $4 billion per day, every day, from now through the end of September. But we can do it, and we will do it.
Billionaire Elon Musk says his campaign to fire tens of thousands of federal workers and cancel government contracts is in the name of rooting out fraud and waste. His Doge group has posted what it calls a wall of receipts on its website that claims it has saved billions by cutting certain federal contracts. But reports and government documents prove that many of these so-called savings are either misleading or incorrect. Our White House correspondent, Laura Barone-Lopez, has been looking into this and joins us now. So, Laura, what kinds of savings are Musk and his team claiming, and does the math add up?
So Elon Musk and his team on that wall of receipts say that their total cuts equal $65 billion in savings. They base that on contract cancellations, firing workers, and, quote, fraud detection. But as the New York Times first reported, 5 of Doge's biggest contracts that they say say have resulted in savings, ended up being deleted from that wall of receipts after outlets pointed out that there were errors. And some of the biggest errors in savings are, as CBS first reported, a USAID contract for $650 million that was listed 3 times. As The Intercept first reported, a Social Security contract listed as $232 million instead of $560,000, and an ICE contract that Doge listed as $8 billion, when in reality it was $8 million. And it's important to note that that $8 million ICE contract was a credit line. That means that ICE may have never ended up paying out that total $8 million. And some of these contracts were on the wall of receipts were either already paid or canceled under the Biden administration. So Doge is essentially taking a lot of credit in time for some of these contracts that don't appear to be actually the savings that they say they are.
I know you were working the phones and talking to vendors who appear on this so-called wall of receipts. What did they tell you?
So our colleague Kyle Madura spoke to one of these federal vendors, a Taylor Jones. His company, Culture Point, does leadership and management training. And his company was listed on Doge's wall of receipts as having a contract for almost $10 million. But Taylor Jones told NewsHour that not only was the amount of money wrong, it was actually $100,000, but it was not a guaranteed payment, it was a credit line, and the agreement with the government was never signed.
We never had a contract, and we've actually never had a contract with the government that was, a $10 million contract or even a $1 million contract. So not that we're opposed to it, but it's never happened. So we were a little surprised to start getting calls from reporters about a non-contract that was never executed.
So essentially, there wasn't even a contract to delete, Jeff. And when you look at all of this across the board, the math is really not adding up to $65 billion.
There will be people who will say, well, what Musk is trying to do is still a worthy effort, trying to clean up government waste. How much money has the team actually saved so far?
So the actual savings is around $2 billion, according to budget experts that we spoke to. And again, as you noted, Musk says that this is about that these cuts are meant to help reduce the deficit and pay for Republicans' tax cuts. We spoke to Jessica Riedel. She's a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute. She was also the chief economist for former Senator Rob Portman, a Republican, and she put those so-called savings in context and corrected the record.
At this point, the $2 billion in savings identified by Elon Musk would pay for 1/75th of 1% of the entire national debt. I have not found any legitimate evidence of fraud in the spending that Elon Musk has highlighted. I have found expenditures that a lot of people wish the government wouldn't engage in, such as DEI contracts and Politico subscriptions, but that doesn't make them fraudulent. It just makes them policies that certain people would not like us to be spending money on.
So as Jessica noted there, so far there appears to be no evidence of fraud despite Elon Musk's claims of it. And she also added that if you did distribute some of that $2 billion or so in savings across taxpayers in America, which is what Elon Musk has said he would like to do, it would basically come to $2.42 per person, so potentially not enough for a cup of coffee in some cities.
Meantime, there are new concerns at Veterans Affairs because Doge is set to cancel a number of contracts there. Who stands to be affected? So
VA Secretary Doug Collins boasted this week of $2 billion worth of cuts. That would be across about 875 contracts that would be canceled. And multiple sources told me and Dan Segalin that 2 of those canceled contracts are with organizations that help implement the PACT Act. The PACT Act, what it did was expanded health care and disability benefits for veterans that had illnesses caused by toxic exposures. And so cutting those contracts could put the onus back on veterans to have to deal with their benefits, trying to essentially communicate between the healthcare side and the benefit side. So it could be incredibly detrimental to them. We don't know the status of many of these 875 contracts. We haven't gotten clear answers from Veterans Affairs, and it appears as though the ones that affect the PACT Act could very well still be canceled.